Okay, good evening. I'd like to call to order the February 26, 2026 work session at 6:30 PM here in the Assembly Chambers. We'll start off with citizens' comments. For those who wish to call in, the local number is 907-486-3231. Toll-free is 1-855-492-9202. Please turn off your radio or any listening device to prevent feedback. For those in the room who wish to speak under citizens' comments, please come to the podium and sign in, turn on the microphone, make sure the green light's on before speaking, and speak directly into the mic. Please state your name for the record and address all remarks to the assembly as a body and not to any member thereof. Do we have any calls? Anyone wish to make a comment? Oh, we have a phone call.
Thank you for calling the assembly work session. Please state your name for the record.
You are now answering a call from the queue.
Good evening. Go ahead, please.
Good evening, Assembly members. This is Brenda Schwanis, 3226 Katmai Drive. I just wanted to point out a few things I have been thinking about. One, tonight there's a city council meeting. I believe the mayor reported, in his first meeting that he was mayor, that this doesn't happen. It only happened once. But tonight, the city council is also having a meeting same time. So again, just to encourage participation in local government, I think it might be wise to consider changing a meeting night because it happens frequently. So that's just the first thing. The second item is, as I've reviewed some of the old agenda minutes, you put down people's names under citizen comments, but there's no topic that citizen wanted to discuss. I think it would be really important to have in the record what the citizen comments were regarding, just a topic. Now, that does not contradict Robert's Rules of Orders. I know that the clerk and I had that discussion. It does not conflict with Robert's Rules. I would encourage the Assembly to direct the clerk to please put a topic under the citizen comments. That gives that citizen, it identifies what the citizen is concerned about. I would really appreciate that. Last, in looking at nonprofit funding, I think it has become more of an entitlement program when you consider, because I don't think the borough knows what grants or incoming revenues the nonprofits are receiving. And I think the nonprofit funding should be based on need and not, this sounds great, I really think it needs to be based on need, especially with our tight budget situation. And I just want to say thank you for your service and have a good evening.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us, Ms. Schwantes. Okay, we're not seeing any calls. Anyone? Oh, one more call coming.
You are now answering a call from the queue.
Thank you.
921.
Go ahead, please. Please state your name for the record.
Hold on.
They hang up.
We'll give them a little bit longer to call back if they'd like.
Hi, I'm Steve McRoot, your assessor. I just wanted to let everybody know notice of values are going out tomorrow. They are a postcard this year instead of that big legal piece of paper in an envelope. So if everybody would please make sure that they pay attention to their mail and don't throw away the postcard. It's really important. Appeal period is from March 1st or March 2nd to March 31st. Thank you.
Thank you for the reminder, Director Groot. Any more calls? All right, so we will move on to the next item on our agenda, which is manager's comments. Madam Manager.
Thank you. Good evening. going to start tonight talking about the property tax work group. We're continuing to participate that. Both Seema and I both attend those meetings when we're available. We were able to talk in front of all the participants at the legislative session in Juneau during that session, and our comments there have led to actually the state assessor attending our work group session tomorrow. So we have a lot of questions about how the state assessor's methodology of assessing taxes ends up resulting in the state paying less for education. And so we're drawing that link for everybody. While we were at AML in Juneau, Mayor Griffin, Assemblymember Johnson, and I were able to meet with Representative Stutes and Senator Stevens to discuss the items that the Assembly prioritized. Our advocacy for those items is continuing. As we continue to add information and work with the senator and representative staffs. We learned a lot about our PERS-TERS system. We were also engaged in discussions about school maintenance funding. We received an update from Senator Sullivan, who was able to attend in person. We also got updates from the commissioners of the Department of Health, Department of Environmental Conservation, Department of Education and Early Development, and the Department of Natural Resources. We heard various perspectives on the state budget, revenue options, and a session called More Budget Blues. That was literally the name. It was kind of depressing. KOB was also invited to testify in front of a joint session of the House and Senate Education Committees, and Mayor Griffin spoke in front of that group. So we got a lot done while we were there. The Citizens Academy has been launched. There's a flyer in your packet tonight. Anyone interested in attending should send an email indicating their interest to academy@kodiak.ak.us. And thank you to IT for setting up that email address for me. Tonight we have an agenda item. Over the next few months, you'll see in the manager's report, it'll be much more robust than what's there tonight, but you'll see what's coming up and when we're talking about what. Once we review that and decide on how to do it, that will be populated, and we'll just have a kind of a timeline of where we are in that process, so everyone can see where we're at. Our current collective bargaining agreement expires at the end of June this year. We're having a meeting to set a timeline for negotiations on Monday at 3:30. Previously, we talked about possible Assembly member participation. So if anyone is really excited about representing the Assembly in those negotiations, please let the DPO or the mayor know. In finance, the foreclosure process has begun for 2025. The required annual 4-week newspaper publication of the foreclosure list started on February 20th. There's a copy of that for your information in front of you. Since additional interest and fees continue to accrue, if you find yourself on that list and you want to pay off, please call the finance department at 486-9324 to get a payoff amount. The property assessment and tax implementation project, we originally were planning dual entry into the legacy and new systems through February. It's not going as smooth as we had hoped. We're going to continue dual legacy through June. If something magical happens, our old company is so happy to get rid of us. They've already said that they will prorate any money that we give them just to get us off of their system. In community development, the commission met on the 18th of this month for its regular meeting. All 3 of those cases were recommended for approval to the Assembly. Those cases will be scheduled for introduction on March 19th. Community development is working on an upcoming meetings page that will be on our website. The address is there in your packet tonight, and if you're looking online, you can click on that and go right to that page. The page will allow those that receive written notification and want to learn about more information for the cases. They'll be able to do it prior to the publishing of the agenda. The new webpage is part of the work that the staff and the Planning and Zoning Commission is doing in an effort to enhance public notifications and allow easier access before the agenda is actually published. In information technologies, IT is reviewing the remote access methods and agreements with Long Technologies regarding the KFRC systems, and they're setting up disaster recovery resources for those systems. They're additionally preparing for the departure of our network analyst. The other person in IT is cross-training to be able to move up into that position, and then we'll list Michael's job. GIS is continuing fixing missing zoning records. They're working with GCI and the post office to make sure that we have valid addresses throughout the borough. In assessing, we have 8 late filed applications, same number as last time I reported. The good cause exemptions have been scheduled to be heard by the Assembly on May 21st of this year. As SEMA just told you, notice of values are scheduled to be mailed tomorrow. We got that system to work at 2:30 p.m. today. And so Sue in finance, who is sending out stuff, and SEMA, who is sending out stuff, have just been a bundle of anxiety for weeks. And so she didn't show it, but we are very much celebrating that that is working. Exemption appeals, there's no changes. In the exemption reconsiderations, St. Mary's withdrew their reconsideration request before they had their meeting on the 18th, so that one will be taken off the list. In engineering facilities, Long Technologies was on site February 19th conducting updates to our building monitoring systems for the admin building and the KFRC buildings in accordance with what you approved for those contracts. For the solid waste contract, the staff requested an extension to be able to finalize updates. The next solid waste contract committee is meeting on March 17th at 3 p.m. For our community pool, we are anticipating an engineering fee of $42,739 for the efforts associated with design and construction oversight for the destructive testing project to begin. No changes on our elevator modernization. We did have a mandatory pre-bid meeting on February 20th for the landfill soil remediation. That's all the super sacks of soil that are out at the landfill. DEC has been very patient with us and are working on us to make a very simple plan in which we will build a berm and put like 6 inches of sand down and then spread out that soil after we sift it and then just put a large plastic sheet over it, which is the cheapest way we could possibly deal with that. So we're very thankful to them. The long-term care center and the Carlook are both in packet review tonight. And then that moves us to Providence Kodiak Medical Center. There's 4 items there. They're also all in the packet review tonight. At the leachate treatment plant, we've extended the laboratory contract. When we extended that contract, they said they will no longer provide courier services. So our team found a courier to take those samples to our laboratory. And that you can see that we found one that wanted to charge $301 per delivery and the other for $145. So you can guess who I picked. That is in place until the end of June. That will all be redone. Our regional solid waste management plan is due to us on February 28th. The landfill scale maintenance was approached by someone. I got that information to our maintenance supervisor, so they're on island in March and September. So either this next upcoming month or in September, we'll get the landfill scale. We're just going to do some preventative maintenance from our records. I think the last time it was done was 2013 or 14, so I think it could probably use some attention. Baylor maintenance, it's in the agenda packet for tonight as well. For small projects, I won't make you suffer through the whole list, just changes. We anticipate work to start at Port Lions fire alarm panel replacement tomorrow. Our picnic table replacement project, the quotes are in, and I am reviewing them. And that's just a really nice way to say I think they're way too expensive. And so I'm trying to figure out how to handle that. Upcoming meetings, Architectural Review Board is scheduled to meet on March 9th and the Solid Waste Contract Committee on the 17th. Attached tonight, you're going to see the Citizens Academy flyer, a memo from our project manager concerning the Providence Kodiak Island Medical Center lease definitions, which we'll talk about in packet review as that gets closer, and the project's office report. And Cody is here in the audience if you have questions about the project manager report. Thanks.
Thank you. Any questions for Amy? I'll touch base with you offline. Happy to sit in Monday afternoon. All right, I'm not seeing any questions, so we will move on to agenda items. First up is a presentation from the Alaska Aerospace Corporation. Mr. Robert Green, who is the general manager of Alaska Aerospace Corporation, will be presenting some info for us. Come on up, sir.
Thank you, Assembly, for letting me come up and get a little presentation. It's been several years since we've come up and given any, it's on, so, okay. Given any updates on what Alaska Aerospace is up to, so I'll try to be brief. You guys have a full packet, it sounds like. So I'm not used to this, so I like to make eye contact, but I got to read off that, I guess, so. So Alaska Aerospace State Corporation, our main headquarters is in Anchorage. As you can see, we got 15 full-time employees up there. Mostly what they do up there, it's leadership, financing, contracting, and programs which are, whether it's enhancements or it's missions that are coming to the site, license and compliance. Down here, it's Aurora Launch Services, which is the subsidiary of Alaska Aerospace. And we maintain and operate the personnel that run the Pacific Spaceport Complex, Alaska. So for Kodiak, we have an office with 7 full-time staff there. We do the management, procurement for the site, and we have a full-time contracting person there that does specific things for the PSCA. So out at PSCA, we have 19 full-time employees. We're bringing on 2 more, actually interviewing today, so we're hoping to get up to 21. And then we have 6 part-time employees. So we basically do all the operations and maintenance out at the site. That's Narrow Cape. Okay. For what we do for the economic community and our impact, we've done about $600 million worth of work and income towards the state since inception, which was 1998 for the first launch. We average 1 to 3 launches per year at PSCA, and then we do 1 to 3 spaceport campaigns abroad, which we have deployable systems that we take all around the world, and we support other launches. We've been to New Zealand for 3 years. We just supported a defense of Guam last spring. We're getting ready to go off for another one. We take them, we call them off-access systems, that we can go and we can track and do flight termination for a vehicle. We directly impact 147 businesses we support annually in the state of Alaska. We try to get 5 to 6 interns. Last year we did a high school program out of Anchorage as interns. We had 4 interns. They were junior and seniors. But normally we do through Space Grant, which is the University of Alaska Fairbanks. We get 2 interns there, and then we have partners, our customers, that will actually bring interns onto the site as well. We do about $50K in nonprofit. Majority of it's on the island here. We do some of that in Anchorage, but we support a lot of the nonprofits on the island here. So we got 50 jobs. Actually, we're going to be up to 53. So that's how this changed since I've done the slide for NOVA 2 weeks ago. And we've taken no state funding since 2014. So everything we do is off revenues generated by contracts. So Alaska Aerospace, it's a state corporation that was funded by the legislature in 1991 to promote aerospace in Alaska. They've been the most focused was at PSCA here. It's kind of changing under the direction of the new CEO. We are partners by statute with University of Alaska Fairbanks, the Geophysics Institute. So they have Poker Flats, which is up just south of their university up there. So, but the main corporation is always just focused on the PSCA here on the island. So PSCA here, we've got 1 of 4 vertical launch sites in the U.S. The 3 other ones are Canaveral, Vandenberg, and Mars Wallops in Virginia. So the other 3 are co-located on federal land. We're the only spaceport that's not located on federal land. We're the very first FAA licensed spaceport. There's been several since, but the FAA actually says that we are probably one of the most organized and best licensed spaceport when they come up to see us. We've been, since 1998, we've done 35 launches. This is our 35th year in existence, so we're celebrating that. We've got 6 launch pads. We can do solid fuel or commercial, which is a lot of times a liquid fueled rocket. We've had those out here in the past. Most of the time, the solid fuel is a government vehicle. Obviously, we like to tout this, that we're an ice-free port. The airport can support any aircraft coming in. So a lot of our customers, the government comes in with C-17s. They brought in C-5s in the past. And obviously, they brought a lot of stuff in on Matson. So we contribute a lot. We do year-round operations. The most of our launches historically have been in the wintertime. This is how we're laid out. I'd welcome anybody to ever come out. We do tours all the time, but LP1 is the tower. That's the big building out there. It's set up for solid fuel. It's got a launch stool on it, so it takes the Minotaur-type vehicles on that. LP2 is right next to it. It can do either commercial or a solid fuel, and we've launched both of those off of there. Area 3, I'm looking at Steve because he spends a lot of time out here, so, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to call you out, Steve. Area 3 is our newest launch pads, and they're built out more for the commercial aspect. So we've got 4 out there. We really only use 3A and 3B and 3C. 3A is more of a storage LP pad, and 3D was always set up for some previous government missions with mobile launchers. So we're in the process right now to upgrade that to look like the other pads. And if you got questions, just stop me. So this is the overlay of what the site is. So uprange, it's 2 miles from all the launch pads. Uprange, we have the Launch Control Center, which is in the RCC. That's the main building. That's where everything happens. Next to it is our MSF. That's called the Maintenance Storage Facility. That's the day-to-day operations. That's what's everything's in there. But the antenna field, the instrumentation field, one section of that building runs all of the equipment in there. So the antennas are the big golf balls. We've got 7-meter antennas that are fully fixed there, and they can do trajectory and flight termination. We have the capabilities. That's what you're seeing on that top right one there. That's the little Lego-looking things. That's the flight termination. That's called a CDS, and that's the newest one that's on the market right now. So we just got all that certified. We have that second field, or the second to the bottom on the right is a weather radar. So there's 3 weather radars in Alaska. One's on Middleton Island, one's in King Salmon, and we have one. And we've been trying to work with NOAA to get that thing, because it's very costly to run. It's on all the time, and if they can take that data and we can tie it into NOAA, it's going to be one more forecast tool for NOAA. So they're just trying to figure out how to get that. The bottom right is our payload processing facility. We're going to see a lot more activity here, and the reason is that payload processing facility has been dormant for about 15 years, and it's the only one on the West Coast that's not being used. There's 2 in Vandenberg, and they're booked for the next 20 years. They can't get in there. So we're going to see more activity here because of that. So we're starting to invest money to bring the payload processing facility back up online. On the left side, it's our LP1. The IPF is where they put the vehicle in there. They integrate what the payload is onto the vehicle, take it out to the pad, put it on a stool, and launch it. The SCAT, that little building in between, if it's needed, it can be transported between the 2 buildings. It's on rails, so you can have the vehicle under that building from the IPF to the tower. Rocket motor storage, we have the ability to store 2 vehicles there. We're looking to bring those back up online because some of the customers that are coming online want to have the ability to have something stored here for logistics, so that if they do a launch, they're not having to wait an extra week and a half, 2 weeks to get a vehicle back up to start integrating it, because that integration takes a couple weeks itself. So what are our initiatives? We're going to try to broaden the aerospace within Alaska. That's what our new CEO is doing. And I guess I should apologize. He wanted to be here. He will be here on the next one. He had to be in Washington, D.C. this week. So, but he does want to have that one-on-one with you guys, so you guys can ask him questions anytime. So what do we have? We have land advantages by working with the university. They have lots of land throughout all of Alaska that's already set up for instrumentation and stuff. And we have customers that want to come in, put satellites up, put a telescope to track their satellites, and it's going to be all throughout all of Alaska. So obviously the Pacific Test Range, I don't know if you guys have heard of that, but when we do launches and it's shooting to the south, if it's a government mission, it's very costly, and it takes 2 boats, 2 aircrafts for that launch to go from here. And we usually go off access. We go on Sandpoint, put a set of instrumentation there. We're going to build nodes out the chain to ADAC so that we can eliminate 2 of the boats, and that'll keep the cost down for the government when they're doing launches. We're working with DOT for road improvements. They're trying to make sure that the STIP doesn't fall to the side again for all the work that's been planned for the Kodiak and Rezanoff. So we're backing them on that. And then we're going to be bringing some money to the table. We have programs that want to fund the roads, but we're just trying to figure out how to do it because it's owned by the DOT. So we're trying to get some money to them for doing upgrades. We're doing a license at Poker Flat right now. It's a NASA range, but we're going to do a commercial license there. We're halfway through that process right now. We're looking to do a FAA license for a horizontal launch, which means that they would take off from an airport and launch. We have 2 locations. One would be possibly Kodiak, and the other one would be possibly Cold Bay. So for what we're doing at the site, we're doing improvements on the launch pads. That's what I spoke to on the Pad D that we're doing there. We're doing a lot of our modernization for what our equipment is, and we're doing a 5th deployable system because they're needed everywhere. We're constantly being asked, excuse me, to ship one of our deployable systems out. And that's it. I'm trying to keep it brief because I know you guys full packet. So if you got any questions, I'd love to answer.
Thank you for the presentations. Any questions for Mr. Green? Mr. Woods?
So you talked about road projects. How big of an impediment is that switchback just up past Passag Shack to you guys? I can't imagine it's terribly easy to work with.
If it's too big of a vehicle, which it's the Minotaurs or the bigger vehicles, these last 2 missions that we've done, they're smaller vehicles, so it hasn't been a problem. It's been a problem that the vehicle has to come on a specialized trailer, and they have to do a lot of testing, so it costs a bunch of money. They come out 8 months in advance, and they have to do a bunch of road tests to verify that their equipment can be put on that trailer and brought up, and it's got steering axles. But the bigger vehicles, the Minotaurs, when they've done it in the past, the only reason I know this from my career in the DOT, we always supported their moves on the roads. It has to be pulled with like a big grader all the way up the hill. So we're we did a preliminary design for realigning that switchback. Alaska Aerospace funded that with DOT working with us. Phase 2 is the full design. And that's where some of this, where are we putting our money, because it's not your asset, it's the DOT. So I'm actually going to Juneau next week. We're trying to work through an agreement that it's 2 state entities. We just got to be able to work together. But we're trying to get a design that we would take that switchback and realign it. So it's.
Yeah, thank you. That just seemed like a fairly obvious impediment to what you guys are doing.
It's probably the biggest bottleneck. So.
Mr. Gardner?
Thanks for coming out and presenting to us today. I had some community members come to me over, the past several months, and it was convenient that you guys were going to be here today. A lot of people were asking why you guys weren't paying property tax out there, and I did a ton of research on your company, and so for the public's knowledge, Alaska Statute 26, Chapter 27, Section 260 states clearly that Alaska Aerospace is a state of Alaska public corporation, and they're not beholden to pay property taxes in basically any way, shape, or form out there. However, are you familiar with Kodiak Island Borough Code on properties subject to tax on lessees that may be storing property out at the rocket launch complex? So in talks with finance and people here at the borough throughout the week, I can give you the exact codes and statutes. They're in front of me if you'd like. But when there's a private interest in public property is taxable, any real or personal property which is used by a lessee out at your facility is supposed to be disclosed to the assessor's office and then is subject to business property tax. Those records are not being given to the assessor, and hoping that you guys would be amenable to being more forthright in the equipment that is out there that belongs to lessees that are using the property moving forward, so that they can kind of contribute to the burden that a lot of the public places or feels that the spaceport puts on the island. And additionally, I was wondering if especially in light. I mean, you guys are getting $45 million grants. Would Alaska Aerospace Corporation be amenable to some form of payment in lieu of taxes to the borough, in light that you guys have many thousands of acres that are given to you by the state out there, and the burden of closures on the road and the constant complaints that you guys get from the public?
Yeah, I'll address the leasee part of it. The state owns the land. I don't know what our agreement with the Alaska Department of Natural Resources is. We do not lease. If a customer comes up, they sign a reservation, they get onto a pad, they don't own the pad. They may have improvements that we need this certain power over here that we'll put on the pad, but a user agreement is what we do, because we cannot lease to a customer out there. It has to be a multi-use pad. So you'll hear people say, oh, that's Astor's, that's ABL's. That's not, it's the state of Alaska's property, and we can't lease to them by our lease with ADNR. So we do user agreements. They come up, they say we're going to be there for 6 months. We had one of the customers that did do that, where they left a bunch of stuff, and we pushed them and told them they're leaving their property here, that they needed to work with the borough, that they had real property sitting on the site. It was stored. I believe they did, but most of the time when a customer comes up, they're going to come up, they're going to set up, they're going to try to launch, and then they're going to leave. Because a lot of those commercial guys, the launch stool they bring up is what they got to take back to wherever they're headquartered at to set up to test for the next vehicle. So on the PILT, we've talked about that in the past. I'll clarify the $45 million grant. We get spaceport enhancements, but it's not for sure. We have to split that with another spaceport, and right off the top, there's a percentage that's taken off from the people that oversee it. So that $45 million, by the time it gets down to us, we would get half, and we'll probably get about a half of that half. So it's kind of divvied out, and it's between us and Virginia. And the reason that's done is because these two spaceports are state-owned, and all the federal spaceports are covered under the federal budget. So Congress has put together a program for spaceport enhancements, it's called, to make sure that the sites are up and ready to go. That's our biggest amount we've ever received, but we still haven't received it. But it'll be split with Virginia. So, but I know our leadership has talked about PILT in the past. You got to remember, we take no funding from any source. So every money we make, it's keeping the lights on, it's keeping our employees employed, it's fixing the buildings. The state puts nothing into that. All they've done is about $200 million worth of investment over the time since it started. They have not paid for any improvements. They have not paid for any maintenance or anything. It's all done by the corporation.
Thanks. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Ames.
With the government talking about its defense program involving space and all, does it look like Kodiak's going to be part of that?
Yeah. So the administration's Golden Dome, they're put out 2 RFPs, and if you look at our launch azimuth, Kodiak has the largest launch azimuth in the world. And the RFPs actually specifically say you will launch from this launch azimuth. So they don't spell out that you're going to launch from Kodiak, but the vehicle has to launch from our launch azimuth. So kind of going around, yes, we're going to be seeing a lot more business out there, and it's going to be on the commercial side, but it's government programs. So commercial customers that are supporting a government payload.
Thank you. I have a few questions myself. So this is a topic that is actually one of the reasons I ran for office. Folks were very concerned about the increase in activity out there, and as I'm sure you're well aware, this is one of, if not the most popular sites on the road system for recreation, for hunting, fishing, subsistence. With the increase in activity that you're presenting and anticipating, that concern is growing for the community. So the community members that have come to me, and there's been many, it's the same question that echoes through my brain is what's in it for the community. A lot of the figures, it's great what you're doing to support the Alaskan economy. I didn't see a lot that was specific to Kodiak. You did mention some nonprofit funding. So I guess my first question would be, with the anticipated increase in staffing, will Kodiak positions be prioritized? Because I noticed when you do post positions online, they're typically Anchorage or Kodiak. And so if that's going to be the case, is there any, I guess, thought behind incentivizing folks to come to Kodiak? So what's in it for Kodiak? More jobs is a great way to start improving the optics with the community, I think.
No, and if you saw what we did, we moved contracting department, some of it's here. Before, that was all handled out of Anchorage. We, pretty much everybody, I think, I'm just trying to think really quick. The last person we hired actually moved up here to take a part-time job just because he wanted to work in the aerospace industry. He's since moved into a full-time job, but we just interviewed 2 today that are local. So that workforce will grow out there if we get busier. To talk to the road closures and the impacts to that, our lease requires that every time we do a road closure, we have to track and give the data back to the DNR. We only do road closures, and I'm going to clarify this, the road closure is the road down onto Fossil Beach. If there's a hazardous operation at Area 3, it's not really technically within that hazardous area, but the perception if there's something going on, which we've done before, we left Fossil Beach open, and they hear all this activity up there, and we got kind of feedback that they were kind of afraid, didn't know what to do, even though they're technically out of the safety area. That's the only time we close, so we've really changed how we let customers impact Fossil Beach. We only close the main road on day of launch or on a test, which is, we call it a live fire. It's got to prove that the vehicle will start and run, and the FAA will set that time frame for the size of the vehicle, averages 7 seconds locked onto the stool, to prove that it's ready for flight, and that's usually within 3 days of launch. So those are the only 2 times that we're allowed to close the road. It's pretty strict. We keep a lot of data on it because we have to track that through DNR. But we're changing how we operate for impacting anybody else. For any type of hazardous ops, we're pushing it to non-weekends, non-holidays, nighttime operations, so that we don't impact anybody going out there. If you can, about day of launch, that one, we try to make sure that we have requirements with the FAA, the Coast Guard. We work with all the fisheries groups. And then we have to do publications with Alaska Department of Transportation requirements to close the road because that is a state highway.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah.
One more question, if you don't mind. So with the explosion that happened, it released, I would be guessing, so I don't want to speculate, but it was many gallons of fuel onto the land and in the water. And the public was and is still concerned about the impacts of that, because like I said, that is a very popular area for subsistence and for recreational hunting and fishing. This is food, fishing game that people are consuming in their households, and if it may exist, I'm unaware of it. So for any public that are listening, how is that your mitigation measures, how is that captured and communicated to the public so they know that it's safe to eat the deer that are browsing out there, or to catch the fish and eat the fish that are in the water where the fuel spilt? How can they find this information? That way they know they can monitor it without having to come to us.
So the last anomalies that we've had have only impacted land. Nothing has gone into the water. And the impacted land, we have to meet the EPA and DEC requirements. And we have an engineering company out of Anchorage that monitors all that. They come down. The last impact that you're discussing, we actually went outside of what it impacted. They did all the testing and stuff, and went actually quite a bit bigger just to ensure. What we're doing on this new pad that we're building out is the way the soils are out there, it goes down through the organics and then it goes into the sandstone, which is fractured. It's not a hard rock, but it's kind of hard, right? But it'll go through it. That's where we have problems, and it would be anywhere, that if you dump 5 gallons on the ground, whatever it's going to be, if it's got a lot of fines, it's going to stay high, but if it's got a lot of angular rock, it's going to go down. So this pad we're building out, we're actually building out membrane under the whole pad, the whole thing that we're building. So if there's any type of a spill, it'll go down about 18 inches, and then it's going to have a membrane, so we won't allow it to go any farther. And that's our new standard from lessons learned, that a small spill can really kill you. I mean, look at people that have fuel tanks by their houses, you know. Pretty soon they're digging up a huge hole around there just from how that thing will mitigate from migration, so.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And
Yeah.
if possible in the future, if there's any way the public can go to your website and find that information, if another anomaly happens, I think that would be
Yeah.
a huge benefit for folks' peace of mind.
Yeah, we're right in the middle of redoing the website, so I'll have that added, so.
Great.
And if you look at our website, we try to be out in front. We tell people if there's any road closures, how long until the next launch, things like that. So we're trying to be as best we can. DOT requires that we put message boards 3 places on the highway. So if you're going from town out, you know right away if the road's going to be closed. If you're coming from Chiniac going that way, you know the road's closed. And actually, if you're in the Passage Shack community, we have one right by there. So if they want to drive to the road, so. But
Great, thank you.
yeah, no problem.
Mr. Woods?
So with your talk of increased launch activity out there, and just being that area, if not directly for the subsistence fishery and hunting, does get a tremendous amount of vessel traffic. Do you guys attempt to coordinate with Fish and Game to try to avoid launch windows around fishery openers, or how does that work? What steps do you do to mitigate impacts on commercial fisheries going through that area?
Yeah, great question. So yes, we do. And like I said, I work with, if we're coming into a launch, I work with all the different fishery groups. I work with the processors. We had a customer that wanted to launch during the Tanner crab fishery. And I just told him no. That you got to realize this is one of the most important fisheries for Kodiak, and we are not impacting it. And they did. They pushed their mission a month away, and then it was kind of funny because they're all from California, so they're like, we've learned more about crab fishing over these last couple of meetings. But I said, you got to understand how important these are to our community. This is how they're making money. You know, these are small boat fisheries, and we can impact them. I work with the different trawling groups. I'll get on when they're going into a season, I would get on their meetings and I would explain what's maybe coming up that might impact them. I'm always trying to be out in front and talk with the community on the processors or the different fisheries. I work with the Fish and Game, and I talk with them quite a bit on what are they. Salmon's another big one because there's lots of openings in the bays right there. So I'm working with the different biologists on what are you guys looking at. And so what we try to do is we put 2 boundary boats, and they're local people. Some of them are fishermen, some of them are just different pleasure boats, but they'll be out on each side. And then what they'll do, what I've found is if there's a fisheries, if it's a commercial boat, they'll plot a course for that person if they want to keep going, and they can put them outside of that azimuth. They can have them run for a little bit, know that the launch is going to go and then come in. It's funny because we're on comms and you hear them a lot of times. They go, "We got the best seat. We're going to sit and watch this," and they just sit out there drifting. So, but yeah, we're trying to be very proactive with everybody in the community.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Gardner, and then we'll see if any other folks before we move on.
I've heard rumors of the government or the military wanting to build a deep water port that sort of piggybacks onto your operation out there. I was just wondering if there's any truth to that.
There's been discussions about different ports. They were talking about a port out there. They've approached us because they can come straight in. If you have a larger vehicle, it has to be barged in. They can't fly it in just because of the size of the explosives on it, the amount of explosives on there. So on a solid fuel rocket, that is. So there's been discussions, and I think it was 2013, Alaska Aerospace did a study on doing a barge landing at Passage Shack. It went through quite a ways. I think it went through comment periods and everything, and the Corps had a permit on it. We've looked at redoing that because Old Harbor Native Corporation has approached us on that because they knew of that, and we could tie it into their transportation plan. They would like it. It would do an improved boat launch for people out there, but it would just be a seawall with a head similar to what's at Woman's Bay. But they could get people to Kodiak, to the road system, without having to run around Chiniak when it's really rough out. So we've kind of been talking about that because that would be better for the community than some type of port. And if, honestly, with the weather, I don't know where you'd put that port, because they were talking like out on the end by Ugat Island, but with the tides and the winds, there's no way. It'd have to be somewhere sheltered. But so that's kind of what we've talked about, is maybe looking at that barge landing again. So especially with the interest from Old Harbor Native Corporation.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Green.
Yeah,
Appreciate your
appreciate
time
it.
presenting the info and answering all of our questions, and look forward to future updates.
Yeah, appreciate you guys inviting me. Thank you very much.
All right. The second item on our agenda is discussion of FY 2027 budget calendar and policy decisions. Madam Manager.
Thank you, Mr. DPO. Just to clarify, the clerk sent out, and you have in front of you this lovely orange number. This is not to discuss tonight, so this is just our first look at the budget. You'll see on the front, it says level 0. I wanted to get you the progress of what has been done at the department level. This is just general fund. This doesn't include any of the other funds, but just some beginning information. Included in there is a 4.7% increase for health insurance that we know is coming, and a 1.51% increase for PERS that we know is coming. It does not have any negotiated salary increases that might happen with our union negotiations, but it does include the regular step increases that we will incur. So each year that we're doing the budget, we try to get something to the assembly in the month of February, so we're cutting it really close, so that you have some just numbers, some places that we look at. We've put together a proposed schedule. I'm going to ask you to come in on a Thursday where you don't have to come in, so that's what we have to discuss tonight. The month of March is one of those, or April, sorry, is one of those months that has 5 Thursdays. And so on that 4th Thursday, we wouldn't regularly have a meeting. So the schedule that we are proposing tonight calls for a special budget work session on the 23rd of April. And this is going to get us done almost a month before we were done last year, because if you guys remember last year's budget, we were at the meeting before we had to introduce the ordinance, and we were still going over E&F stuff. And so it was really late, and I felt like it was really squished. So this one's a little bit more aggressive with starting on March 12th, which is our next work session. We will go over our enterprise funds, our special revenue funds, and our service areas that do not have boards. On the 26th, 2 weeks later, we'd be going our service area with boards. That's when we would ask our service area chairs to come in. So if you had questions about their budgets, that would be the night to do so. And we'd also go over revenues. And we've already kind of done that a couple of weeks ago, so it won't be much different to when I gave you the little puzzle infographic and that sheet that goes with it. On April 9th, that's when we would hit the majority of our general fund departments with finance, clerks, legislative, the manager, assessing, and IT. We would also go over general administration and our education, culture, and recreation. That one is not nonprofits. That is our pass-through money for Carlock through the community assistance program. Then the next 2 weeks later would be that April 23rd date, and that's where we could choose to do that or not, up to you guys. If we do, we would go over our community development department, and then as you can see, wherever there's a Chris, that's budgets that Chris helps with, so Parks and Rec, LEPC, the building official, animal control, all of those. That's the day we would also do E&F. That is a bigger budget because we go over buildings and grounds and land sales and stuff like that. That would be that day. And then our final work session would be on the 30th, and that would let it be just the discussion of the school district ask. and to clean up anything we had left over. So that would wrap up the budget discussions, like the individual line items. And then as we moved into May, we would have time to talk about other things than budget, because you'll find out tonight we have a lot of hospital stuff that we need to talk about. And it kind of just gives us some more breathing room in the budgeting process. And one thing that Dora did that I think is really great is it's grouping all of our fund types together. So you'll see all the enterprise funds together. You'll see all the special revenue funds together. So it'll help you and the public with those different kinds of fund types. So when we're talking about enterprise funds, that's not mill rate funds. And when we talk about special revenue funds, that has a bunch of different funding sources. And so we can kind of teach and educate the public along the way if we keep the fund types together. So I'm asking for an extra meeting, which I know is painful, but the city does a Saturday budget meeting, so that makes Thursday night sound better, doesn't it? So this is just like start looking, and then in front of you, and we put in the supplemental materials for people who are online, there is this color-coded sheet. That's what all of the different meetings are. That's all of our different fund types, color-coded by what night we're suggesting we go over them. And then this second Excel spreadsheet with the orange on the top is a breakdown of the other things that we need to talk about. So we know by April 30th, the school district has to ask us officially for what their ask is going to be this year. 30 days after that, we have to have an answer back. So we're just filling in all of those dates. We usually talk about what that date is going to be at the joint work session with the school district, which happens next week. So we'll probably know exactly when that ask is going to come in. So we'll be able to fill in those dates, and then we'll be able to figure out exactly when that we'll actually have to have a vote on what the school funding is going to be for the district this year. That's a lot. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Amy. I certainly support that extra meeting. Having gone through 2 budget cycles now, it's a lot to digest, and I think the more time we take on it, the less rushed and stressed out people are going to be, especially when we come into the more complex topics. We have a very stressed fiscal scenario we're facing this year, and it's only going to increase in the subsequent years, so I certainly support that, but I'll open it up to discussion. Okay. Mr. Smiley.
I'm in favor of that, too.
Nods and thumbs up. Not that we're polling, but folks seem to be in agreement.
I think once you compare it to a Saturday session, the 23rd looks good, right? Okay.
Yeah, so we'll work on getting that agenda set here shortly. Any questions for Amy? Dr. Smiley?
Can we have it at the brewery?
I'll let you guys decide the answer to that one.
We can't have class. We can't have class outside.
Right.
As fun as that sounds.
So if this looks good, what we'll do is we'll see in the manager's report, you'll see in that budget section, you'll see an update of where we are all the time and what's coming up. And then you'll have, in the packet review, you'll have, or earlier if it's ready, we'll try to get the information out and keep it rolling. Tonight, we're going to have in packet review, we're going to talk about the public hearing that will happen next week to move the official level 1. That's the first official budget that comes out. That'll be April 15th. So it's kind of oddly in the middle of this, but we can have many levels of budget. So as the assembly wants to make changes or we find out new information, we can always go in and change things right up to the night that we pass the budget, which will hopefully be on June 4th ahead of the June 10th deadline. There have been years where we had to schedule a special meeting ahead of the 10th, like on the 8th or 9th, because we couldn't get our stuff together at the regular meeting beforehand. So I'm hoping, because as was mentioned, this is a tight fiscal year, we'll be able to fit everything in and then have time to actually contemplate what it means to fund or not fund to different funds at what levels or how much we can afford to give nonprofits. And I followed the Assembly's direction for when we're building the budget is the full school ask, and I flat funded our nonprofit funding from last year. So there's assumptions in there that all need to be discussed by the Assembly as we move along. So I think it's in a very good place, and although it's tight, it's not as far as off as I thought it was going to be. So I know that I still have to add some training in for E&F, and there was a software question, and I don't know what animal control is going to be, but we were within $16,000 at our first look. So that's pretty close, and positive $16,000, not negative. So, and we're making guesses on revenues, best guess with our information we can get from our subject matter experts, and but that will all change as the Northwest Pacific fisheries start making changes, and so as we go along, we'll be able to update some of those revenues as well. So I think we're off to a really strong start, and Dora, despite her saying no, we can't do it, got this out today, which was amazing. So thank you to her for her efforts.
Thank you. Thank you, Dora. For it seems each cycle we're making this more digestible, not only for us on the assembly, but for the public. So really appreciative of that. I am sensitive to 7 of us asking questions during the budget cycle, which may be a lot. Is there, and I do think you should be entitled to a preference, is there a preference on how we route questions to different departments? Would you prefer they go through you and you disseminate, or directly to staff? It can be a lot.
You can go directly to department directors, but just please copy me. Obviously, as notice of value is going out, and we're in that appeal period between March 2nd and March 31st. If you don't hear back from SEMA, it's because there is a constant roll of traffic through here. And I know that Sue is out for the next couple of weeks, and so the chances of Dora answering you right away also. And so I can help answer or run interference, or at least explain why there's a delay in answers. One year we had an assembly member come to a meeting with 300 questions for that night alone on what we were talking about. If that's you, that's fine, but can you please get those questions to us beforehand and not in the meeting? I learned a lot that year, a lot. And I knew detail that I never would have known without those questions. So I'm not complaining about the number of questions, but to put the public and the rest of the assembly and whoever staff is in the room through 300 questions like that is a lot for one night. And so if you have a bunch of those questions, if you know that you're going to have them early, we would definitely appreciate the chance to get our answers together before we walk into an open meeting like that.
Yep, it's great. Thank you. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you. A kind of budget strategy or philosophy question for you. Something I've struggled with a bit in these elected positions and in my prior employment. You budget for a position, you budget for a number of positions, and inherently some are going to be unfilled throughout the year. Now, I know there's varying philosophies on that. I think it's better to budget for what's realistic, not what's authorized. Is there any discussion in our budget process for accounting for undesired but expected vacancy rates?
So one of the things in your budget tonight is the actual positions, what we had in fiscal year 26 going into fiscal year 27. And I will put the engineering and facilities director in there because gosh darn it, we are going to hire that. Is that realistic? I'm not sure yet, but man, I sure hope so. I should not be that person forever. So hopefully we'll find somebody. But the additions that we made is, one for the landfill, the baler, and one for the LTP. We've been asking 2 people to run that leachate treatment plant, and I just think that's too much for 2 people. If one person goes on vacation or gets sick or has a child or whatever happens, it leaves that entire plant to one human. It's too much. And so we've tried to be thoughtful, and we took out a bunch, or 5 part-time employees because we were budgeting for things just in case. My philosophy would be if we have a just in case, we can cover that in a quarterly budget amendment later. That we don't need to build in a bunch of, if we get a bunch of snow or we don't get all the trash picked up or, whatever it is. I think that's why we have quarterly budget amendments. And so I would lean towards doing it that way, just so we can not have a bunch of fluff. People say to me, oh, you guys just spend so much money and everything's overinflated. And we really try to take a lot of that out. Like we know exactly what that money is supposed to be used for. And like, there's stuff that we put in there and we just didn't get to, and I think that's always going to happen, but we tried to be much more realistic with what our staff capacity was. And I walked in May of 23, so most of this was done by the time I walked in, and so this is only my second full process, but I think every year Dora's like, oh, a light bulb just went on, right? So I think just when she gets a manager trained, they leave. So I think we're all learning, but I think that since we have the ability to do those quarterly budget amendments, we should use those to cover the changes that we don't foresee coming. So I think we've been really good with that. And we don't always need a lot of those, but there's one noted that is coming up just for nonprofit funding that we funded differently. You'll see a note in one of the spreadsheets. So sorry, that was a really long answer.
Hey, any other questions? All right, thank you, Amy. Okay, so next up is, the third item on our agenda is the land disposal process discussion. Madam Manager.
So I had asked our community development director to work with Megan Christensen. Megan is probably the person who's most familiar with our land resources files because we don't have that position filled. I did put that in the budget one year, and then we tried to imagine what that person would do for 40 hours a week, and we just couldn't. So we didn't hire, and then it wasn't in the budget. It's not in the budget this year, and it's not going to be in the budget next year because I still don't feel like we have a 40-hour-a-week job for that human. So Chris, maybe much to his chagrin, has been, he said once, oh, I did that when I was in Kentucky. No. Yes, somewhere. Thank you. He had 7 people in his office, and right. So now with his 2 people, when he should have 3, we've been leaning on his historical knowledge, and I asked him to make a flow chart. And so what you have in the packet tonight is a flow chart, just so we can kind of see the process of where we're at, and we specifically made this process, or this flow chart, off the Island Lake properties. And as you can see in the flow chart, it's 9 pieces long, and we're on step 4. The rest of the pieces, I think, can fall in place pretty fast, but I asked Chris to make a flow chart so everyone could be on the same page of music, and if you have questions, I'm going to ask him to come up and answer them since he's the flow chart master.
Director, if you don't mind. I certainly have a couple.
I will say that this flow chart is somewhat unique to the Island Lake specific property. So any other properties, it could be a little bit different.
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you. So I'm looking at the UR here, and then scrolling down, you also expanded out the where we are here, and the timeline is great for myself and folks maybe new to the assembly of how we got to this step. So appreciate that. So how soon realistically can we move on to one more slide down. So the current step, determining whether the property should be sold, is that something we simply put on the agenda and then seek your guidance on how to?
So the commission's the Planning and Zoning Commission has already acted on a request for an application for disposal. They do their review in terms of whether there's a public use for that portion of the property. They've already made their recommendation to the assembly. The next step is really for the assembly to work on a resolution that would basically approve a disposal of the property. Now that would include how you would sell the property. So what you'll see in some of what I did with this flow chart is I broke down, I have the overall one, but then I have unique to each different piece of the flow chart and kind of did a little more explanation of what that is. So if we go to the one that's related to the assembly review on the disposal, pull that up here. So again, you have to determine whether the property should be sold. So there will be a public hearing. The public could come and talk about whether they feel that, if they agree with it should be sold or whatever, and give you testimony. Then there also would be set the disposal method. We have specific disposal methods set out in Title 18, and the assembly's we're kind of restricted to those types. One of those being an RFP, which wasn't recommended by the Lands Committee because this particular Island Lake property had already had some subdivision work already done, so there really
isn't viewed the need to try to rethink how that works, but there's some work that needs to be finished there. So it really comes down to like outcry auction or sealed bids. And then the third part is coming up with terms of sale for the property. And I think there was a lot of discussion when this went to the assembly before in terms of what those kinds of terms of sale would be. And so we feel that might be the most discussion, and that might maybe require a work session of its own, just to kind of get the thoughts of the assembly on what types of terms of sale are needed. If you need us to research anything with the attorneys or whatever, there might be some things there depending on what some of the things the assembly thinks they may want to see in there in terms of sale. So I think that might be an important step, is that you have a work session to kind of develop your ideas of terms of sale and how the sale would go. And then we can also hopefully maybe try to answer some of the questions regarding how much it's going to cost to finish the kind of the development part of the process, which is there's going to be some work to finish the survey, to get that back to the Planning and Zoning Commission. And as there was done previously, this had a previous subdivision approval that's expired now, reason why we need the surveyor back on. But it also has some improvements that need to be made for drainage for this property. And so in terms of how much that will cost and stuff, that might be some additional work staff may have to look into, and just kind of give you an idea of the cost of that.
Okay, thank you. So it sounds like that what we need to do next is get this, get the determination through a public hearing first, and then we can, downstream of that decision, we can schedule a work session for disposal methods in terms of sale.
Correct. So I think if you get a work session, put this on another work session, kind of idea exactly what you may want staff to bring to you. Probably won't be a whole lot more than this, other than we can bring to you a little more details about how an outcry auction would work or how sealed bids would work, and then we can bring some ideas of previous terms of sale that the assembly has put on other sales in the past, and bring those to you in the work session, get some of your thoughts in there, and then we'll be able to draft a resolution to bring to you for the disposal.
Great, thank you. Any other questions for Director French? Dr. Smiley.
There were two other parcels that the Lands Committee looked at off of Salif there. What's happening with them? Do you remember?
So the committee made their recommendation. So that's the one thing I wanted to, I'm glad you brought that up, Assembly Member Smiley. The issue there, I think, is this step in this process. As you see here, we assembly once, then the assembly again. And it was Lands Committee to the assembly. There really isn't anything in Title 18 that really talks about the Lands Committee in terms of where their recommendation goes right away. And so, I mean, it's possible that the first step might be the Lands Committee makes their recommendation, and I'm looking at Amy too to see what she thinks about it, but the Lands Committee can make their recommendation, and maybe it goes to the manager to maybe start the application process with the commission, who also makes a recommendation to the assembly on the disposal. So we kind of knock out that additional step of going to the assembly. I think that would make it a little bit easier.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. As a sitting member on that committee, I think anything we can do to expedite this process. 2.5 years into this term, and we still haven't released anything. So I'm along with the community in that we're and not no fault to P&Z there or previous committees, but I think the public is ready for us to act.
It sounds, what I'm hearing is it might be beneficial to walk both of those areas through at the same time instead of just doing one. And so
Yes.
it's just a form for me to fill out to get planning and zoning to look at it. So we can get that process started for that second parcel too, so that once we have the terms of sale, we'll just say, okay, does the assembly want to use this for both sets of land that we're looking at right now? And we can kind of push those instead of breaking them up. If we agree on the terms of sale and how, what covenants you want and stuff, if we can do that all at once, it sounds to me like we could push all of that through at one time and have the land sell for two different things that have been approved by the assembly at once.
Yep. Okay. I'm seeing a lot of affirmative nods. Dr. Smiley, is this a follow-up?
Yeah. My memory was there were 4 lots in the Island Lake area that we were talking about, and I think there were 6 or 8 lots off of Beaver Lake Road.
Yeah, so the Beaver Lake one, there was there's like 2 areas there.
Yeah.
So I think it's like maybe one area is 6, another potential. I mean, right
Yeah.
now they're just 2 lots, but there's potential there that you could subdivide it further. It would also require rezonings too. So,
Yeah.
and we also talked about in the lands committee that would be an RFP process for those, similar to the discussions for the property in Chiniak too, was also an RFP process.
Well, one of them, the one that was where the backyard would be on Salif, was very steep terrain,
Yeah.
requiring a new road and all of that. That
Correct.
wasn't what I was thinking of. I was just thinking about the ones that were close to Beaver Lake Road.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
And there were a number of lots there, and if we're looking for lots for people to buy, I mean, that's more than the ones at Island Lake.
Yeah, and I
would
think there
know.
was some discussion in there about, what kind of zoning it would be, therefore that would dictate the size of the lots. There was some discussion about whether it should be the small lot residential zone there, so that would change how those could be developed. So I think that was the reason why an RFP was recommended by the Lands Committee for the Beaver Lake properties, and certainly for out in Chiniak. There's probably not a huge amount of difference in how that would go, because you're looking at large lots probably out there, but an RFP still may be warranted there too.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Gardner.
Somebody came to me a while back concerning these lots we're discussing off of Beaver Lake, and there is a 130-page document from 1996 when they tried to get this out there originally, and I've got it in front of me right now. It's pretty exhaustive. There was a lot of reasons why they didn't want to develop that land. I'll forward it to everybody on the assembly. You should look over it before we move forward with that process by bringing these other lots into play. And then, as an aside, a preemptive comment, not a question or anything, I really wanted to explore the possibility of a homestead-style program as we dispose of some land. It was one of the reasons I ran for office. Dan Rohr tried to do it years back, and there was issues with litigation and the lawyers, and they said it was it wasn't available to everybody. So there was a reason why they couldn't do it. I'm blanking out on the word I wanted to use, but. I'll email all of you again on that as well. I'm wondering if there's a workaround where we can do a lottery program on opening up some of that land, because if we can get the price right on them, I think a lot of people would be interested. But if we go to a bid process, I don't think it necessarily puts the land in the proper hands. I think the community wants small single-family residential with a decent yard. And so I won't expand on that and use a bunch of time up tonight, but I'll email you that as well.
Thank you. Any more questions specific to the land disposal process? Mr. Woods.
I think kind of piggybacking off what Jeremiah said, part of the information in our packet goes to address the approved means of land sale. So I think part of that would, if you wanted to do something like an auction, please correct me if I'm wrong, but it would require a change in code to allow that as an approved method for disposal. Generally very pro disposal of land. It really only benefits us. We're currently not collecting property tax on that. That's land that we could be collecting property tax on. I like seeing some properties up, but I would personally like to see many, many more in the future. Like, instead of dozens of lots, I'm talking potentially hundreds. I think that'd go a long way to start working towards fixing some of our financial issues.
Yeah, and for the public that's listening, we did have to postpone or cancel, essentially it's postponed our Lands Committee meeting, but we have new membership. I'm one of them, and I'm certainly looking to meet more frequently if that is the will of the chair. The public has been asking for it. We will be shifting our meetings into the assembly chambers, so these will be recorded and available via YouTube, either live or after the fact if folks want to stream it. So stay tuned. I'm in agreement. I think we need to get some land out, and certainly inclined or leaning towards small lot, which is I'm getting away from the term affordable housing. Housing here is expensive under any scenario. I'm using the term entry-level housing. I think that's going to be my focus as a committee member and a member of the assembly, is small lots that are close to, or in town or very close to town, that are entry level in nature so we can grow our workforce and increase our revenue stream. But Director French, thank you very much. We look forward to the next step.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to packet review. First is public hearing. Ordinance number FY 2026-19, amending the Kodiak Island Borough Code of Ordinances, Title III, Revenue and Finance, Chapter 3.15, Public Finance, Budget Section 3.50.030, Budget and Capital Program to change the budget and capital program submittal date. Staff report, Madam Manager.
Thank you, Mr. DPO. Our current code requires the level 1 manager's budget to be submitted by April 1st of each year. We're asking that that get changed to the 15th of April moving forward. The Assembly, as you have seen tonight, has a schedule for budgets, and we start discussing it well before those dates, but this allows finance a little bit more time to prepare the level 1 budget. The service areas are not required to have their budgets due until March 30th, and we're trying to prompt them to get them a little bit earlier by asking them to be at that work session on March 26th. But there have been years that they come in on the last day, and then that level 1 budget is due the next day. So we're asking for a little bit more wiggle room. This happened, it got moved from April 30th to April 1st. A few managers ago, it felt punitive towards that manager because they didn't like their budgeting style, and it has stuck ever since then. So we're looking for a halfway point to give a couple more weeks before that level 1 budget has to be out officially.
Thank you. I was aware of this, and I certainly support it. I think spreading out the timeline, especially when Dora has a lot that she has to prepare for us in a short amount of time with the other departments and Amy, certainly factoring in the amount of questions we're going to have for them. So just spreading this all out. I did attend the Service Area 1 budget discussion. It sounds like they have a pretty good idea of what they're going to ask, so hopefully they can get that to us sooner than later. I believe they're actually agreed on their final budget.
Schedule is good. The only one that we're not aware of yet is Bayview.
Okay.
And everyone else has met, at least for their work session, so we're just waiting for their regular meeting, but they're on the move.
Great. Yeah, so I will certainly support this. Any questions for Amy? All right, thank you. Okay, moving on to contracts. Contract number FY 2025-43, change order number 1, multi-facility elevator modernization with TK Elevator Corporation for authorization of payment of tariffs in the amount of $4,302.51. Staff report, Madam Manager.
Thank you. In part of our contract for our multi-facility, I'm looking at the wrong one, but for our multiple facility elevator upgrade was that we would pay tariffs because we knew that they were coming when we signed this contract. You can see the breakdown. There is a change order amount of $1,489.46 for the middle school elevator and $2,813.05 for PKMIC's elevator, which will result in a $4,302.51 increase. When we passed this, this was a will not exceed kind of contract, and we are exceeding that contract, and we knew that we would if tariffs came into play. So it doesn't violate the percentage, it doesn't violate how much I could change on my own, but because of the way we passed those contracts, that they will not exceed, it comes back to the Assembly to make sure that you know that we are exceeding.
Thank you. Does that have any questions? All right. So next contract is contract number FY 2026-47, Kodiak Island Borough Cybersecurity Infrastructure Project in the amount of $219,453. Staff report, Madam Manager.
Thank you. This is an RFP that was put out to upgrade, replace, and configure firewalls, switches, and wireless access points for the Kodiak Island Borough. This is grant money. Through the RFP process, Kodiak was found to be the lowest bidder. Well, it's actually Kodiak Cyber Solutions. And it's a 22-week project timeline which aligns with our requirement to complete the audit at the end of 2026. Fred has listed out the 6 different phases and included procurement method reports and what his process looked like. if you're in IT, there's a lot of really good language in there that I don't exactly understand, but I'm really happy. Fred and his team have been excellent with keeping the predatory behavior out of. We have found a lot of people trying to change account numbers and the way that money is routed, and they have stopped it all. So we're very happy and we're excited to see this project move forward. This will take up most of IT's time, especially with Mitchell leaving and Michael moving up into Mitchell's position. When we hire a new person in, this will be most of what Fred and Michael are doing until over that whole 22 weeks. So it's an exciting project for them.
Thank you. Assembly questions? All right. No. Mr. Gardner.
Not a question, a statement for the public. That number amount made my eyes pop out of my head until I read through it, and $180,000 of that is pure grant, pure grant money. So we're not spending much on that.
Great,
You're
thank
right.
you for that.
That is a big one.
Okay, anything else from the Assembly? Okay, the next contract is contract number FY 2026-48, long-term care fuel spill site investigation fieldwork and reporting with NWFF. Madam Manager.
Thank you. In March of 2020, fuel was discovered entering the city sanitary sewer system from a manhole located on the Providence Island Medical Center's property. The source was identified as a leaking heating fuel line at the Chiniak Elder House Long-Term Care Facility. At that time, Kodiak Island Borough contracted with NWFF to prepare a corrective action plan and perform immediate cleanup operations. In July of 2025, the KAB was notified that the Alaska Department of Environmental Conservation had a final report supporting that we had a final report that did not have the supporting documentation. In it, no contaminated soils have been removed during the later construction activities and treated at the landform, and no confirmation sampling was completed. So what happened is we turned in a work plan to ADEC, and then we didn't do it. And so they said, shame on you, how are you going to fix this? This is our plan to fix this. In January of 2026, they approved our new work plan. On February 9th, we requested a proposal from NWFF for fieldwork and reporting, and we did it directly with NWFF because they have been the firm that has been helping us with this project throughout the entire project. And to start over, we would have to go back to that beginning sampling, and the work that NWFF has done is then proprietary to them, and so they don't have to share it with a new company. You're going to hear this exact same thing from me on the next one when we do 3-tier Alaska for Carluck. We're staying with the same company because they have all of the history for those spills. Also, I would add that we are also starting, and Cody has been instrumental, but we're starting a fuel tank preventative maintenance program that's pretty thorough. The above ground tanks will be really easy. The underground storage tanks are going to be a little bit more difficult, but obviously a lot of these fuel spills that we're dealing with at the hospital, at the long-term care center, at Carluck, hopefully we'll be able to prevent some of that stuff if we're doing better preventative maintenance on those tanks.
Great, thank you. Assembly questions. Mr. Woods.
So does the borough actually own the long-term care facility then?
Yes.
Okay. So I guess my question is, if this was just facilities matter, then I guess that explains why we're paying for it. Thank you.
No, yeah, so it's not necessarily our fault, and they did help us with the initial cleanup. And that is, during this process is when we made some handshake deals with Providence on project management. Is kind of the historical reason why we're in the situation we are with Providence. But we didn't actually do soil contamination near the foundation, or check for soil contamination near the foundation of the building. So we're having to go back and do that. But our relationship with them paying has been broken because of the project manager deal that we made with them. And so we're going to be on our own for the rest of this cleanup, but that won't happen again.
Okay, any other questions for Amy? All right, so moving on to the next contract number, FY 2026-49, Carluck School UST Fuel Spill Work Plan Implementation by 3-tier Alaska. Madam Manager.
Thank Thank you, Mr. DPO. We received notice from Alaska Department of Environmental Conservation that they were going to require additional site characterization and delineation for Carlock School underground storage tank spill originally identified in 2014. This isn't because we didn't do things right. We've just been waiting for that remediation test to come back, and it just has not cleared. And so DEC came back and said we need to put in some more work out there. So in March of 25, we engaged 3-Tier Alaska to coordinate with ADC and clarify the specific actions that needed to be done to advance the project. In May of 25, ADC formally requested a submission of a site characterization work plan. 3-Tier Alaska completed that work plan and submitted it to for review with ADC in November of 25, and we got the official approval of the work plan on January 23rd of this year. On February 9th of this year, we requested a proposal from 3-Tier Alaska to perform the field work and the reporting required under the approved work plan. On February 17th, we received the proposal from 3-Tier Alaska for the field work and reporting, as well as 2 quotes they received for the subcontracted drilling services. Staff are proposing to accept the proposal from 3-Tier Alaska with the lowest cost drilling subcontractor quote. It's a lot of words. So this is a spill that is 12 years old, and we are still working on cleaning it up. The drilling is going to allow us to monitor the downhill dirt from the school district, the school district, the ex-school tank, which is a huge tank, and it's DEC mandated. So here we are.
Thank you. Assembly questions. Dr. Smiley.
I just want to make it clear that this is a school that's been closed for a couple of years now, and this was the underground storage tank with fuel oil in it for that school, and that's why it's our responsibility.
Yes.
Thank you.
That's great info. Thank you for that. Any other questions or comments? All right, moving on to the last contract reviews, contract number FY 2026-50, Baylor Maintenance Part Purchase with Blankenship Equipment. Staff report, Madam Manager.
Thank you. There's some information in the packet tonight about the type of baler that we use. We use a Harris press baler. Every year we do a baler rebuild, and the parts are rather expensive. If you've been on the assembly for a while, you'll probably be thinking to yourself, I've never heard of these annual rebuilds, and that's because they usually get broke out to different fiscal years. We buy some in the spring and we'll buy some in the fall. Because Jeff Johnson retired, we missed one of those purchase windows. The half of the parts didn't get ordered, so we're ordering them all at once. That total cost this year is $109,077.87. Obviously well over the manager's purchasing authority, and so multiple quotes were received. You can see that the Blankenship equipment was far less than the other quote, so we're asking for permission to get those parts shipped here. The staff does the work themselves. We're very lucky that there's no additional costs outside of parts. We have that knowledge built into our staff due to their longevity at the landfill, so that all gets taken care of in-house.
Thank you. Assembly questions. All right, so before we move on to other items, I will note that there are four items to discuss potential authorization relative to projects with Providence Kodiak Island Medical Center. Before we address those 4 items, we have a memo that we would like to discuss and get some information about. So, Madam Manager, if you'd like to get us up to speed, we'd appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. DPO. So today at around noon, you should have gotten a memo emailed from you from our Engineering and Facilities Department, authored by our project manager. If you don't have that, it's in the manager's report tonight. If you haven't seen it, Cody is here. I'm going to have Cody come up and give you the highlights from that memo. The more that we investigate our process with Providence, it seems like the more questions that we have. And so Cody did a great job in summarizing the conversation that we had this morning and the thoughts that we've kind of been marinating on over the last few months. So Cody, if you would come up and speak to your memo, and then we'll discuss on how that affects those 4 items that are on the agenda for next week.
Yeah, absolutely. So the manager directed me this morning to kind of review one last time. For context, we had the HVAB meeting, and that's kind of what a lot of this stemmed from. There was some information gleaned from that meeting where there was going to be some current configurations that were changing, and supplier that was being provided would no longer be provided. So with that being said, this review began with kind of like the lease statements that you see in your memo. And so for the people listening online, I'll just kind of go over that. I would like to begin with the key definitions of the lease between PKMC and KIB. And so section 6.2, renewal and replacement base adjustments, subsection C states, any project over 50,000 and not listed on the R&R schedule necessitated by a state or federal facility audit that is not a deferred project may require a lease rate adjustment. None of these clearly outlined if they were necessitated by a state or federal facility audit. However, section 20.4, replacement renewal, states that KIB will be responsible for all costs associated with replacement renewal through the replacement renewal reserve funds, which is the informally known as the R&R. Replacement renewal is defined as an exchange for one fixed asset or another that has the same capacity to perform the same function, which in my world we call a replacement in kind. Section 20.6, capital projects state a capital project is defined as work performed to change the interior arrangements or other physical characteristics of an existing facility or fixed equipment so that it can be used more effectively or for its current design purpose or adequate to a new use. A capital project also includes any new structures built to support the current purpose or the new use of the main facility. 26 explicitly says capital projects will not be funded through the KIB replacement renewal reserve unless agreed upon by the parties incorporated into the lease agreement by amending the lease and the R&R schedule. So I bring that to your attention as we proceed through the packet tonight because it's important to keep these lease definitions and delineations in mind, especially with concerns of like responsibility of payment. I also wanted to make a comment that while reviewing this, I realized that we did a disservice to the Assembly by the organization of the items on the agenda. And now looking at it through a different set of eyes from more of like an analytical mindset and the precedence that has to be made between these, DP6 should be viewed sequentially as like the kind of the number one project because without DP6, it doesn't appear to be enough power for the facilities. And then they all, throughout that memo, I don't want to have to read it verbatim, but I'll happily do so if that's the request. They essentially build off of DP6, and I added a paragraph in there on how DP6 plays a role in each individual project. But happy to answer any questions about that.
Thank you. Before I open it up for questions, Mr. Johnson and Mr. Smiley, I believe you're both on the HVAB. If you would care to expand, please do.
I don't know where to begin on this. There is a terrific amount of information that we need all of us to understand in order to effectively deal with these issues. And I strongly recommend that we postpone this because there's a lot to go on here. And Cody was at the meeting that we had on, was it Wednesday or Tuesday? Wednesday. And it was dumbfounding how much he had to talk and how complicated all of this is. And part of the reason that it's complicated is that the hospital uses different kinds of descriptions for things, you know, and engineers are different from former university professors and former harbor masters. So part of that was a problem. But there's some serious issues between us and the hospital regarding procurement. And we need to straighten that out. And I think part of that is something the manager and the mayors are going to have to deal with. And we're going to need advice from them as well. So I move to table this for a later work session, perhaps the next work session, and give us each a chance to carefully read through Cody's letter, because it's got a lot of details in there, and it's not easy to psych out what's going on. If you start with DP6, that section, you'll understand part of it. But part of the past history of this was this used to be one request from the hospital that was $1.2 million. Was that the number?
I believe it was 2.7 million, but yeah, it was a larger project that's been subdivided up.
Yeah, and there's all kinds of stuff going on here. So that's my request, that we table it.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson?
Thank you. I agree with Dr. Smiley. I think we need to hit pause on this, and I can't thank Cody enough for the work he's done in digging into the contract. That's a piece that we didn't necessarily discuss Wednesday, but it also just further, strengthens my resolve that we not push this through. I think both the assembly and the hospital have been guilty in the past of going well outside the terms of this contract for use of the R&R fund. But we have a contract that we've signed, and we need to start holding to it. And some of these, as you know, again, my layman dumb brain reading, the RO, for example, that sure sounds like a basis for a contract term adjustment based off Cody's memo, because they need a different quality of water for their sterilization. That's a new requirement. And while I might not speak hospital, I can speak requirements for days. That's a part of the acquisition process I'm intimately familiar with. And yeah, if we've got changing requirements, that needs to dictate changes in the contract. And the other piece of this that we'll need to get a lot of resolution on is, again, these handshake deals always come back to bite you, and the air in the hospital is going to come back to bite us right now. And we need to make sure that this project, before going forward, takes care of Providence's interests, but also doesn't leave PKIMC high and dry. So I agree that postponing this to a future date when we've had more time to digest and let the contract discussions take place behind the scenes would be the best move.
Great, thank you both. Any questions for Mr. Allen or discussion? Mr. Gardner?
I feel like I brought some of this stuff up, but not nearly as concisely as Cody did months ago when I first joined the assembly. And since then, I've talked to people that work for Providence that I won't name, and I've discovered a lot more information. But you did such a great job just condensing all this. And I'm super uncomfortable with them upgrading their systems. And the reason that it all happened after speaking with Providence employees was, for instance, like the chiller was operating at 65% before KCHC moved in. So then KCHC moved in and they bumped it up to 100% usage. And now they're expanding some of their systems and they're upgrading it, and they're trying to put the borough on the hook. And at the same time, I also appreciate the hospital, and I think that there is a strategic way to meet them somewhere in the middle. As the way the lease states, I think we could hit them with help that we've already agreed to for a like-as replacement, and if they want to put in upgrades, they could pay the difference. And if anybody has any way to educate me on how KCHC pays into things with the hospital, I have no idea how their whole financial agreement with us works.
I believe Madam Manager can fill us in.
Thank you. I had a conversation with Olivera from KCHC today to ask about what that utility arrangement was. They do have an agreement with Providence where they pay a certain percentage of utilities. She was in Juneau, so she wasn't able to send that to me, but we should be able to get a copy of that. And I spoke to her about what that looked like if they expanded, which we're going to add their expansion as a discussion item to the March 12th work session, in addition to all those fun budget things we're going to talk about, just so you can see a picture and a floor plan of what they're looking to do. And then I had that discussion with her about what that looks like on how her utilities would obviously have to increase. And then we need to have the discussion on what rent looks like, because they pay almost zero in rent now. And if, we need to, when KCHC was put in place, it was through a Denali Commission grant, and we had support from Providence, we had support from the Borough. Who else am I missing?
Alaska Native Tribal Health.
Yes, was a partner, because we all saw that we had a gap in healthcare here. And I think a lot of those personalities are no longer involved. And so now it's like, oh, why is KCHC getting all this free stuff? Well, they're getting all that stuff because they were filling a huge gap in healthcare when that was built. And so I think we need to do some history lessons and some timelines and get back to why that is and what that will look like in the future as we move forward. One of the main problems that Cody found in that HFAB meeting was that one of the design that they had was not including KCHC air supply, that it was just getting cut off. And that cut off was a design from 2024. So that makes you go back and look at all the designs. And when you start digging in, you're going to find out the design for air handlers happened in 22. It then was changed in 23. Our ARB approved the 35%, and now they want to go back with 65%, except the 65% isn't even remotely close to the original 35%. They're just, so we paid for 35%, and now we're going to pay to 65%, but that paying for 65% is really going from 0 to 65% because it's completely new. And we're not in those conversations. And as the landlord, we have to be. And so I think that Providence has done a very good job in trying to communicate with us. And I think the new people in place are open to communication and collaboration, but we're still having to go back and undo stuff from years ago that we were involved in. So thank you for your patience. I think there is absolutely ways that we can make these projects move forward, but I don't think we want to rush into it and just approve money for, I think Cody used the Ferrari of RO systems. You guys talked about the golden stairs. Now we're going to talk about the Ferraris of reverse osmosis. So I think that, we didn't want to say, oh my gosh, let's not do this. I think we should actually talk about it in public, but I think we need a lot more public conversation about the best use of those funds, and paying for design and redesign over the same projects because they're changing their mind, I don't think is the value for those dollars that we're supposed to be getting. So I know that the lease discussions are coming up, and we'll actually, and Mr. Loomis, Dr. Loomis has been open about the fact that Providence wants to work with us, and we will change those lease payments. But I don't want to waste the money that we have until we get to where we're going. So we just like to not cancel everything, but just pump the brakes a little bit. And if you're willing to take those items off of the agenda for next week, we'd like to just put a pause on that till we can get together and figure out what the best course forward is.
Thank you. Mr. Woods.
The more we get with these projects relating to Providence, the more concern I have. If I have to hear handshake deal one more time, I might lose my mind. With that being said, and with what are apparently some disputes in some of the terms of the lease, I don't think it would be inappropriate to have a executive session at some point to discuss how that lease has been administered. Get everybody up to speed, because I certainly have some concerns that this could potentially end us in litigation at some point. Not now maybe, but down the road it could be. I think we're on the highway to getting there. With the more we have conflict over who's paying for what, I just see the higher that potential going. I don't know if there's any other interest in that among members of the assembly, but that is something that I think we're rapidly approaching, barring some kind of course correction.
Thank you. I have a lot of concerns as well, and mine have been snowballing. I've been fairly vocal with recent agenda items related to expenditures in Providence, and I agree that we should postpone all 4 items to a future agenda. We do have the lease coming up in a year, as I understand it. So I think we also need to reevaluate our process and how we handle project management. Should it be going through Providence, or should the borough consider taking this on in the future? It does seem backwards that Providence can put projects forth and they can actually go through a phase of series of expenditures before we even see them. Of course, there's the HFAB, which we do have representation there, but this was something that was brought to my attention, is process and project management, and I was appreciative of the person who brought that to my attention, so that's something we should consider, how we look at project management, whether or not we should take that on as a borough. I'll just say it, thank you, Madam Manager, for that item, or food for thought for us to think about going forward. Mr. Allen, thank you again for your extreme attention to detail and everything project management. You continually impress me with all of the things you catch and getting us more in line with contractual language, which is something I'm also passionate about, but nowhere nearly as skilled as you are at it. So thank you, and thank you, Amy, for making these suggestions. So it sounds like we're in agreement to postpone these items till we can dive a little deeper. All right, thank you both. All right, so that concludes other items. We will move on to clerk's comments.
Thank you. I just want to remind everyone about financial disclosures. If you haven't filed yet, they are due on March 16. Meeting attendance, I know that I have 3 assembly members that are going to be out in March. So if you are traveling or if you are going on leave, please let me know. And also a reminder that any request for electronic participation must be made with 24-hour notice. A reminder that you have a joint work session with the school board on Wednesday, March 4th. It's going to be in the school district conference room, which is across the parking lot, the blue doors. Enter through the blue doors. Okay, and a few things that we were working on. We were publishing and notifying the public for the budget public hearings for all service area boards. I would like to commend Irene for her wonderful job coordinating the publications. I am also preparing my presentation for the Citizens Academy, which is scheduled on March 24. Other projects that we're working on, we're looking at Borough Records Code, Title II review, and also the election code. A training is scheduled for our BOE on April 23rd, which is in preparation for our BOE on meeting on May 4th. We still need 2 seats that needs to be filled on that board. We are processing 5 liquor license renewals and 1 transfer of controlling interest. We also held our peer-to-peer training yesterday with staff members, and we finished our session on minutes, so perfect timing for the comment today for citizens during citizens' comments. I have attached an article for you to digest about the Assembly adopted your rules of procedure, and you have adopted Robert's rules, which shall govern your proceedings in all cases. And the meeting minutes suggested by Robert's rules is that we take action minutes, and that the recommendation is that we do not keep detailed minutes of discussion. We do not do the he said, she said. These are generally a waste of time, effort, and resources, it says. Minutes should record what is done, not what is said. So just sharing this information with you. And then I sent you an email tonight. I went back to my office. We have a couple of requests for sponsorship. First one would be from Kodiak Arts Council. It's the Big Dipper table sponsor of $1,000. The second one is the U.S. Coast Guard Burr Valley Golf Course sponsorship. It's either $1,200 for hole 1 or for holes 2 to 900 per hole. We currently have $5,878 remaining for the current fiscal year ending June 30 for sponsorships. So I'd like to know if you'd like me to cut a check for this. Or if you'd like to discuss them at a future work session, that's fine too.
Thank you. How much time do we have to think about that?
One has a deadline of March 9, the one for the Kodiak Arts Council.
Would it be out of order if we discuss it now?
I think you can. The money is already budgeted in the, it's already there. You already approved it during the
Okay.
budget session. You just need to let me know if it's something that you're interested
Okay,
in.
so I think since we're shifting some items to future agendas for the sake of not compressing those too much, we have some time this evening if folks would like to touch on those. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm very sensitive to borough funds in this regard. However, we're elected officials, and being at community events is, I think, a reasonable expectation of some of us to attend or try to attend these. I think we should be sponsoring a table at the Coast Guard Appreciation Dinner. I think an arts council is also a good representation of the Borough Assembly. Not in favor personally of the Bear Valley Golf Course one. That's a kind of more of a, feels like more of a fundraiser for a space. I can understand if others feel differently, but that's where I stand on that. Thanks.
Okay, Mr. Gardner.
I think I line up mostly with Mr. Johnson. I don't have a problem with supporting the Arts Council. I have an aggressively big problem with giving money to the federal government for any kind of reason. That doesn't make much sense to me at all. So, yeah, I'm against that. Thank you.
Mr. Ames.
Now, you said money was already appropriated for which ones?
Oh, you have a budget for the whole fiscal year, which was
Yeah.
already approved during the budget season last year.
Yeah, last year's. Yes.
You just did not allocate them ahead of time, but I have a pot of money that we can dip into.
Yes. Okay, that's what I wanted to make sure, that I understood that correctly. Myself, I am not a golfer, and generally, I'm kind of against, but if is raising money to support the golf course, to me, that's almost like putting money into a borough park and rec, because it is an activity a lot of non-Coast Guard people use. And so I think we have to look at it from both angles, that it's open to the public and it is used, and if we're helping to support a recreational activity, we should at least consider it and discuss it. Thank you.
Thank you. So, to be clear, for the, I guess sponsorships, does that mean that the assembly will have a table to attend events, or what does that sponsorship entail?
I've sent you an email with the details, but I can, like for the Kodiak, the Big Dipper table sponsor for the Kodiak Arts Council, it says, let's see, the Big Dipper sponsorship includes a reserved table for 8 guests with early access to the event, 8 event tickets plus 1 drink ticket per person, and prominent recognition. The borough will be featured in our printed event booklet and acknowledged on screen and verbally from the podium during the gala.
Great, thank you. I agree with Mr. Johnson. I'll touch on the Coast Guard dinner here during comments, but I think assembly member presence at a lot of these events is great. You learn a lot about the community, certainly people that you would maybe not necessarily interact with on your normal day-to-day, so I think it's a fantastic idea and just a different way to support the community and get out there. I also have mixed feelings on, I guess, I don't know if it's truly, contributing to something that's a federal event, but you could also say that the Coast Guard Appreciation Dinner was a federal event, and I thought that was a great idea and should always happen, but now I'm rambling a bit. I support both. Dr. Smiley.
Well, I support all three. I've been to the Arts Council ones several times in the past. They're always good. The Coast Guard is always good. It's one of something that identifies Kodiak anyway. And I agree with Mr. Ames about the golf being like a park for a lot of people. I used to caddy when I was in high school, so I have both pleasant and unpleasant memories of golfing and learning how to hit a golf ball and being frustrated.
Mr. Woods?
First, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Coast Guard Appreciation Dinner already happened.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool. Like, I didn't think I missed that.
It was last week.
Yeah. Generally in support of supporting, I guess we're not talking about, all three at this point. We're talking about both. So I'm generally supportive of both. There is a tremendous amount of public use that goes into at least the driving range there. Every time I go by there, there's people there. Very rarely is it exclusively Coast Guard. So I tend to follow that train of thought. I also really don't like giving money to the feds. However, it's one of the very few federal facilities that the public is allowed to use. And if we can at least do that gesture and goodwill, I think that might continue to allow the public access to it, at least play a part in it.
Okay, for the golf course, there's two sponsorship levels. There's a 1,200 and a 900.
Okay, Mr. Gardner?
Steve had me when he compared it to a park. I can get on board with that.
1,200?
So are we 1,200? The 9?
We don't want to be the gold level.
Yeah, I'm with Dave.
Okay, so we're
Okay.
looking 900 for the golf course, sound reasonable for folks?
Okay.
And then we all support the Kodiak Arts Council table. So I think it's a great idea. I guess I'll just close with and I'll expand a little bit on the Coast Guard dinner, but the city council had a table, large presence there. I think we should have a table at future Coast Guard dinners. However, we need to make that happen. I think it was fantastic. I held down the fort for the borough, but I think having a table there with assembly members that can make it is a good idea moving forward. So do you have enough direction, Madam Clerk? Great.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Okay, we will move on to assembly members' comments. We'll start down the end. Mr. Woods.
I want to first acknowledge the tremendous amount of work staff does during budget season. Thank you, Cody, for all the deep dive onto the Providence stuff as well. You guys are my heroes. That being said, though, I have a deep-seated emotional attachment to anything that resembles a handshake deal. And I would very much like to know which ones of those still exist in whichever capacity they exist, because they need to be formalized. They don't exist. I somehow find that difficult to believe. I can feel one in the ether, if you will. That being said, thank you guys for all your hard work.
Thank you. Ms. Roberts.
Thank you. I just want to thank the staff too for educating us and the public on how the budget season is going to work and taking the time to go through that. Yeah, I'm educating myself and I'm excited to have this orange booklet to go through now. So thank you.
You, Mr. Ames.
I'll just say thanks to the staff on the whole hospital thing and going through and trying to consolidate it into a more understandable document. Unfortunately, we are answering, I think, for past mistakes, but there's nothing we can do about that. We just have to make sure we have a clear understanding and move forward properly.
Thank you, Mr. Smiley.
I thought the HFAB meeting that we had was really illuminating. And I think Mr. Ames hit it on the head. There's a lot of stuff that's happened in the past, for lack of a better term, handshake deals. And smiles and winks, I think, were involved as well. And we have a problem there. And we're going to have to work through this. And it's not going to be fun at all. But I'm glad we decided to hold off on this so that we can learn more about it. And you got to thank Cody for his attention to detail on all of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you. And given Mr. Wood's dislike of the term handshake deal, I'll start saying I had to show a little ankle to get my way. So I won't be here next week, but I did want to brief the assembly. I agree with other assembly members who said when we travel on the borough's dime, it's important to relay things we got out of it. And going to AML last week, I don't think the term budget blues actually accurately captures how depressing the state of our state is fiscally. The statement was made that until they spend down the entire Congressional Budget Reserve, CBR, nobody's got an appetite to look at fixing anything. I guess the upside is they're probably going to spend it all by fiscal year 28. So yeah, the third rail of the PFD isn't going anywhere anytime soon. There's still people who run on this mythical number that they think they can somehow pay without finding revenue anywhere else. It was also a little depressing to hear legislators who are benefits of the tiers 1 through 3 retirement system tell us that we can't afford to do it now for anyone else. You know, I asked the question that if, you know, I think we're obligated 22% of the debt requirement. Is that accurate? So we pay 22% going up of that obligation to the previous generation. That's a number of dollars we can't pay to our staff now. So yeah, I've said it at in previous engagements as a commencement speaker. I hold a special disdain for people who climb the ladder of life and then try to pull it up behind them. And that sure feels like what some of the elder statesmen are trying to do in Alaska. One of the other things I thought was really interesting that I got at AML was a senator from Palmer and representatives from the Mat-Su Valley, Anchorage Anchorage Assembly and Kenai Peninsula Assembly all shared the same woes of their assessed values and total assessed value, resulting in less money for education. I hate to feel or sound conspiratorial, but given the governor's attempts at every step to derail that last year, I would be. The conspiracy theorist in me wonders if there wasn't some direction given at that level to look at ways to minimize the payout, because it sure feels that way. It's leaving boroughs and cities in the state on the hook. The only other thing I wanted to say, because it was addressed in a public comment tonight, and it's something that I've wrestled with as an assembly member, as a candidate, as a citizen, I have a very mixed feeling on collecting taxpayer dollars and then donating them in their name to nonprofits. When I talked about the tool belt analogy with our budget a couple weeks ago, that's a not insignificant tool that we've put into that belt. And I like to think if a service is valued, then the community can fund it directly. I know I'm probably in the minority on that position, but it's something that I grapple with every year when we talk about our nonprofit funding process. So putting it out there for future budget discussions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gardner.
Yeah, again, kudos to staff. I was working super hard with SEMA this week, and all you ladies in this room you always amaze me, and I'm really hopeful that SEMA and I can come to some sort of arrangement where we can start to squeeze some tax dollars and whatnot out of the spaceport. I will also be out next week. I'm going to Swampsea. I'm leaving the 3rd through the 6th. I hope to attend that joint work session remotely, but I do not have my schedule while I'm there memorized, so I don't know if I'll be able to do that. But if a clerk or somebody could sort of summarize for me, obviously I'll go through the minutes, but I'd really appreciate that. And that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Just a quick heads up for Madam Clerk. I will be on work travel March 10th, but I do intend to participate remotely if I can get some connectivity out in Dutch Harbor. So we'll see how that goes. I attended the U.S. Coast Guard Appreciation Dinner on behalf of the mayor and issued our proclamation for the Coast Guard We Applaud You Day. It was a fantastic evening. What I didn't anticipate was Senator Murkowski was seated right next to me. So I had a lovely 2-3 hour chat with the senator. She's fantastic to talk to, but I took full advantage of that opportunity to say how could we link appreciating the Coast Guard and the amazing funding opportunities they've received and will be receiving for expanding facilities and infrastructure on base. So I coupled that with our CIP list and items that came to the top of my thoughts that I felt were worth mentioning. And we had a very robust discussion on how we can take those items. I'm not going to mention them specifically, but items on the CIP list that have dual benefit to the Coast Guard and the community of Kodiak. And Senator Murkowski seemed very receptive. Whether or not she can act on those, time will tell. But it was a great opportunity to have her ear for several hours. We broke forks together, literally. There was some lovely plasticware that became an item of humor that we just heard, just this cracking noise, and you see pieces of gold plastic flying through the air, and the senators went flying through the air. I was the first one. But anyhow, rambling a bit, fantastic dinner. I do think we should sponsor a table to that event every year. The city had a very robust showing from the council, so I certainly support that. And I guess I'll close with, I encourage my fellow assembly members to digest the information in the memo Cody packaged up for us for the Providence discussion and future lease agreements and project management. And please start to dive into the orange packet of budget. It's a lot of information. And then please be mindful as you can with how and when you ask questions for staff for budgeting. Other than that, thank you everyone, and we will adjourn at 8:35 p.m.